Hey everyone, you are listening to the Divergent Conversations podcast. We are two neurodivergent mental health professionals in a neurotypical world. I'm Patrick Casale.
And I'm Dr. Neff.
And during these episodes, we do talk about sensitive subjects, mental health, and there are some conversations that can certainly feel a bit overwhelming. So we do just want to use that disclosure and disclaimer before jumping in. And thanks for listening.
So, Patrick, I have a question for you. Autistic people don't want connection. True or false?
Can we have one of those buzzers, like a big buzzer? I mean, false. I think that there are layers of that. That's a nuanced question per every question we're going to tackle.
I feel like nuance, like hashtag nuance, is just going to become this season's hashtag.
Add it to the t-shirt idea that we're never going to create. Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted your flow.
That's okay. I don't really have a flow right now. My brain is really foggy. Okay, so one, I would say false. Insert buzzer sound. We've talked about social motivation and social capacity on here before. And I think, we've gotten quite a few questions of like, can there be extroverted autistics in our Instagram feed as well? And I think all people to some degree want and need human connection, but I think that varies greatly on so many different factors. And for me, it's like, you always talk about like the Goldilocks situation or experience. Like I need it to be just right in order to really want that connection and experience it in a fulfilling way that I can actually be a part of. But yeah.
Yeah. So like social connection, that's too broad. It's like, what kind of social connection?
Yeah.
Those are really important.
Yep.
Like, do I want random social connection filled with a lot of humans, a lot of stimulus, a lot of small talk or medium-sized talk? No, I'll pass. I'd rather stay home with research and weighted blankets.
Sure.
Do I want like deep searching connection that feels a little bit more rhythmically attuned? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And then, so I also like, okay. No, I was about to get you into theory. So yeah, I do want connection. I will also say, I feel like I need less of it than most people in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've mentioned that can make friendships hard and relationships hard when you want less connection than maybe some people you're connected to.
I'm like a cactus. Like it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much water and I'm good. So it's hard to be friends with, like, what's the kind of plant that needs a lot of water? Like like needs water every day. Like I don't do well in friendships with plants that need watering every day because I'm a freaking cactus.
She's out in the desert and you're by yourself, comfortable there. You get water maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Sometimes once a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm more of a cactus than you are, I can tell.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. I would say I'm more like maybe like a Venus flytrap. I don't know how much water is needed, but like, I want connection till I don't want connection. And then I'm like,
and then you start eating the flies.
Yeah. Or just real overwhelmed and irritated. And like, there's all the things that come with my own social experiences. To quote the great Dr. Neff, on one of our podcast episodes, you said that the soul yearns for connection, but the body yearns for isolation. And I think that's the most powerful thing I've ever heard you say.
Well, thank you. I think I don't know how to take that in. It does get quoted a lot, so I can tell it gets. Yeah, I can tell when I kind of randomly found those words, and when I did, I could tell it felt like I was naming something really true. And it seems to resonate with a lot of autistic people. Like, and that's where, layers. There's just so many layers to all these things, right? Like we almost need it. So social connection, there's so much in that. There's social longing, there's social motivation, there's what kind, like the quality of the social connection, but then there's also social energy and social capacity. So it's like in that idea of my soul longs for connection, my body craves isolation. I don't have necessarily the energy or the sensory resources for connection, even though I might long for it. And so, yeah.
So really, I quoted you on my TEDx with that because I think it's so powerful. I think I quote you in my book about this. I quote you so many times. I'm going to have to give you royalties or something. I don't know.
10%, please. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, hey, it's been that instrumental. So I think that's such a powerful statement. One, I want to just like, if you haven't heard that said before, just kind of sit with that. I think it's a really powerful, poignant statement. Also, should go on the t-shirt list. I don't know if it's Kaylin or Caitlin, but if whoever's name it is,
Kaylin is the design magic at Neurodivergent Insights. So when we are going to get a merch lineup up eventually. When we do, Kaylin will be the one who will be the design magic behind a lot of that.
That quote needs to be, yeah, absolutely. I think that feels like foundational. So what I'm thinking about is that the nuance behind like connection, socializing, capacity, limitations. There might be some people who would fight us to the death on this and say like, no, autistic people don't want to be connected. And I would say some autistic people may not want to be connected. And I think we're going to say that about a lot of these topics of like some autistic people may not want or may not experience or may not like ... insert whatever the statement is.
Mm-hmm.
But that cannot be a universal truth.
Yeah, like it goes back to like, when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And then especially when you throw in the ADHD, I would love, I don't know that we could actually get a clean study on this, but I would love to see like social motivation. So not social energy, but social motivation of autistic only, ADHD only, and then AuDHD.
Yeah. You said
before this book comes out, I'm going to figure out how to say AuDHD without pausing. Okay, lost train of thought. So because I do think ADHD bumps up the social motivation for a lot of us. That's kind of a theory I have. I would probably not, and I wouldn't define it in the negative. I wouldn't say autistic people don't want social connection. I would say there are social autistic people, and I relate to this a bit, who have such rich inner lives and worlds that like the social connection has to be really appealing to be more interesting than moving out of, yeah. And that's like the origin of the word is about like kind of being of our own world.
Right.
And there's a beautiful phrase, my phonetical dyslexia is going to be really rough here. There's a beautiful phrase from the indigenous folks in New Zealand, the Maori. Yeah. Can you be my phonetical support?
I mean, I was just in New Zealand. That's the only reason I can say it.
Oh, yeah.
I had to be corrected.
How do you say it?
Maori.
Maori. And do you know how to say the word Takiwatanga?
No.
It's the word. It's the word that is sometimes used for autism, which is in my own time and space. And I find that a really beautiful descriptor of autism, actually, because I do often, that is a lot of my experience, feeling like I remember both in high school and college, people would often be like, I said hi to you and you just walked right by. And I really was like in my own time and space.
Yeah.
And for the most part, unless my mind is raging with mental health stuff, it can be a really pleasant space to be. I wouldn't say it means I don't long for connection, but I would say it has to be pretty compelling connection to want that over what I can have in my own time and space.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a great point, because I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate. I'd say I have more social motivation than you.
Yes, definitely. I think you initiate 90% of our socializing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I do.
Maybe 95.
And it's hard because, like you said, right? If we had that study or that we could refer to of like driven connection, initiation, ADHD, or AuDHD. I really have no basis because I am AuDHD. So I can't, I can only ask other people what they experience. And, I think that's challenging and tricky sometimes because my perspective is my perspective. So I acknowledge that like I initiate a lot of connection with the people I want to be connected to when I'm feeling really lonely, especially. But I'm feeling really lonely a lot. So that probably means I'm initiating connection a lot. However, I don't have the capacity for the connection that I'm initiating.
Oh, wait,
So
I want to pause with
tricky.
that. I don't have the capacity for the kind of interaction I'm initiating. That feels really, I just want to sit with that. That feels like a really important truth you just named. I feel that. I feel that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I've never said that before. Really glad my brain's not working right now because, but yeah, I don't often have the capacity for the connection that I'm initiating.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
And
Which,
that's tricky now that I say that out loud. Like that
yeah.
is kind of heavy.
It is heavy. It's, I want connection. I don't have capacity for connection.
It's kind of a variation of your statement, honestly. Like, and that's really my reality of, and I've just always so much struggle in connection too. Like, as so many of us tend to like struggle in certain social situations or connecting environments. Like, I just struggle with so many things. I've noticed how much I have to constantly track and be aware of in order to feel like any sort of regulation. And that could be even an attunement with other people that I feel really connected to. And like the littlest thing can create like that stack of cards almost like crumbling down. Mostly sensory, but.
Right. You started with like, you want it, but the condition, it has to be the Goldilocks. So it's like all the variables have to be in place. And then it's like a card house of like one things. Yeah. Yeah.
It makes it's probably pretty hard, don't you think?
Say that again.
It's probably really hard to be our friends.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably why I don't have many. I really like, I joke about it, but I really am horrific at friendship maintenance.
Can I ask you a question though?
Yeah.
This is interesting to unpack. So horrific at friendship maintenance, you would be a cactus in the middle of the desert, but you did create like the nook. And that is obviously for connection and community. But you would say there are contexts to connection and community, right? Like different layers of connection, community, friendship, relationship. But it does scratch some itch though, in terms of like that piece.
It definitely does. And as it's interesting, I'm actually like in the middle of I'm going to be meeting with our staff, our community manager soon. She works with neurodivergent insights to like, I'm rethinking the nook because I always said I'm going to know it's like at its capacity of size when I feel it. And I've started to feel that. And so I'm going to be like rethinking kind of how we structure it and how often we let new members in. Because I have noticed that the connection I was getting when it was smaller, it's like started to shift a little bit into like, it feels like work tasks to like keep up versus, and I remember you saying that with your Facebook group too. And so but every time I'm on a live call in the community, I'm like, oh my gosh, connection. And it's that same, I feel like we talked about this in the wellness series, like what I am preparing for a call. Like, of course, even with, people I know, I still get a little bit anxious of like, will this go well? And then I always leave of like, oh my goodness, that felt so incredible to connect with other, mostly AuDHD humans and just hear other people's wisdoms and thoughts. So I always leave those calls feeling so grateful and connected and like, I want more of this in my life. and I forget that, right? So like if I could easily not initiate that if it wasn't on my schedule. It's like, I'm fine without that. And then once you taste it, it's like, yeah. So I am a weird paradox though, in that I'm a very relational, like I talk about relationality all the time. I think about it all the time. And I'm a freaking cactus in the desert. And both of those things. And I don't know, maybe that is why I philosophically think about relationality so much and why I write about it, because I do think I do know that I crave it less than other people in my life. I am generally more fine without it. And there is pain there. There is pain around. It's been hard to build the kinds of connections that I've wanted throughout my life. And I wish it was easier.
Am I getting emotional?
Why are you?
Because I feel sadness for you, because I love you. As a friend.
I've actually had the thought, I was like, I wonder if this would be a helpful thing. This is probably my like paranoia. Because I get anxious thoughts. But I'm like, I wonder how people think about our relationship. Because we obviously are like care so deeply for each other. And we do. We started, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, I think we started sharing like, I love you in messages. And I've wondered if we'd ever talk on this. It has felt really special to, like, I've heard other people use language of chosen siblings, and I've never really used that language before. But that like, and we've talked on this of like, that's how you feel to me, is like a sibling. And I know we both feel that, and it's, I don't know, it felt really unique and special.
Agreed.
So yes, if people ever hear us or see us say I love you to one another, we are not running off with each other and leaving our spouses.
I don't have the energy for that. It seems like a lot of work.
Also not something you do with a sibling.
No. But I think that's what makes some of this stuff special, when we talk about connection, when we talk about relationship. I think that for those of you listening, because one thing I will say is I pay much more attention to our comments on our Instagram and social media than Megan Anna does. I don't think she pays any attention to it, which is good for her mental health.
Hashtag cactus.
Yeah, but I see a lot of you saying things like, I don't really have connections with anyone. I want them. I don't know how to access them, or relationships and friendships feel so hard, or I don't have anyone that cares about me. And that really breaks my heart when I read stuff like that. And I guess I just want to name that and model the fact that we can build them while we're sitting here on air. Like, it's all happened because of an Instagram DM back in the day.
Yeah. I didn't remember the platform of how we connected.
This is when you were like a little more active on IG, and I just remember.
And we were in the Facebook group too that used to exist.
Yeah. So I think there are lots of avenues to connection, and a lot of us, I think, feel safer initiating conversations and relationships virtually. And I think that can make things really tough sometimes when we have such rich inner worlds and maybe we spend a lot of time virtually, then we lose access to that like person-to-person contact as well in person. And that can be when we seek it out. When you were mentioning before, if you go into some chaotic environment, maybe you're seeking out like a coffee shop just to sit around people. Maybe you're like seeking just going to the park and walking around and seeing other people walking around. I think there are lots of ways that we connect subtly without acknowledging like that's what we're actually doing, or that's what we are actually looking for, searching for.
Well, and those are examples of like parallel play. Like we can find places where like we can go parallel play with people and they might not even realize that's what we're doing. Yep. Like if you're going to a coffee shop or surprise. Yeah. Yeah, I think I take for granted because of my work that for a lot of people, they don't know other autistic people, or they don't know other ADHD or other autistic ADHDers.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a lot harder. I mean, I will say the level of relationships I've been able to build since discovery and since finding autistic, specifically AuDHDers, like there's just a connection that tends to be there.
Mhm.
Um, it is really different.
Yeah. So circling back to, do autistic people like connection? I always think about like autistic, like, or AuDHD. I wonder if there were like dating apps or matchmaking apps. I feel like there are, because people have DM
There are.
and said like, "Hey, can you pitch this?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to be on it." Um, but just friendship, relationship building groups and apps and different ways that it's clear that a lot of us and a lot of you listening are looking for more meaningful relationship and
Mhm.
connection, and just to feel a part of. I think that is what we want in a lot of ways, right? Like, just to feel a part of, to feel connected to humanity, to this world that we're a part of and live in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know
Absolutely.
it can feel really inaccessible in so many ways too. And I think that I just don't like seeing like these black and white statements of, no, autistic people hate being social. They
Mhm.
hate like being
I mean,
connected.
it might be true that we hate allistic socializing.
Yeah,
And
that
it's
might be
just,
true.
yeah. I mean, it goes back to like the double empathy problem and cross neurotype interactions. I'm
Yeah.
sure I've referenced it on this podcast before, but Catherine
Mm,
Crompton has several fantastic studies where it's looked at both like communication and communication breakdown, but also like connection building and rapport building between autistic versus autistic, non-autistic.
yeah.
And like consistently we see our communication like doesn't, you know, it doesn't break down like it when we're with each other, like it does when we're in cross neurotype, and we tend to connect more easily with each other. So a lot of it is also about learning how we connect. And this is kind of one of my stump speeches I can get passionate about, but like, and this is the problem with a lot of social skills training, is it teaches you skills to connect in a way that like might be connecting for allistic people. And not that
Right.
those aren't, not that there's not space, like those can be important skills to learn, but it's not going to teach the autistic person, like, what do you find connecting? You know, for us, it might be more of that like parallel play, or what I call object-based conversations, rather than like leading with social-based conversations, which is all that like, tell me about yourself. Who are you?
Right.
How are you? Like, if we can join a book club or a D&D club or something where there's some sort of object that orients us, and especially if it's a special interest, that kind of thing tends to be more connecting for us.
Yeah.
But that's not what society tells us is connecting necessarily. So it's
Right.
also about like, okay, what do I actually experience as connecting? And then how
Yeah.
do I, like, can I honor that? Can I honor that parallel play is the way that I like to, connect?
Yeah. We see a lot of like comments of like, really want deep connection. We really don't want that
Mhm.
like surface level shit.
Mhm.
It's true,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So I'm a cactus, but I don't need much water, but when I am watered, it needs to be like really dense water.
Yeah.
It
What
needs to
kind
be
of
that
water is
deep.
this
I
happening
don't
in
know.
your?
It's like compacted water.
Hmm.
It's like, so it's like it needs it no sprinkler shit. It needs to be dense.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it can't just be like a little like breadcrumb here and there. It's got to be like really
Mhm.
intense. It's got to be,
Mhm.
yeah, there's got to be substance to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mhm.
But it also makes sense that it's like harder to access and harder to find.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is typically you don't just go deep with people right away. I mean, I feel like the people that are in my life are people where it's like within a minute of meeting each other. We kind of are. But
Yep.
typically there is some warming up before going deep.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that can be challenging, right? Especially maybe if we're like thinking about high masking autistic people who discovered their autism later in life. It'd be really hard once you start the unmasking process to figure out like, how do I connect with people? What? Because like, again, going back to what we've talked about before, what are my interests? What do I like? Like, who the hell am I?
Because when you're masking, it's often about like, how do I facilitate other people feeling connected to me? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've actually experienced very interesting dynamics from like learning that I was autistic back in 2021-ish, as I've hosted like retreats and events and started unmasking more and more and more to see how people react to that in terms of like how I show up, how I speak, how I communicate things, how direct I am, how I will literally remove myself from like typical social gatherings and conversations. It's really fascinating to see who's like stuck around and who's been like, that guy kind of sucks. He's an asshole.
Have people actually said that, or is that your narrative?
I think there's probably truth to both, which is fine. But like, I just think it's fascinating when you start to become more of yourself and they become more confident and anchored into who you are and what you like and what you prefer. It's really an interesting like social experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you kind of see who sticks and who kind of sheds away. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just means like you're probably gravitating, again, double empathy problem, to people who have similar neurotypes in a lot of these social situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I am going to tell you that you have that neurotype very early on into our friendship.
I've heard from so many people who's like, yep, first conversation with Patrick.
Patrick's not even a practicing therapist anymore, but, you know, has diagnosed 28 of his close friends within minutes of meeting them.
I do wonder, I have wondered this, if there's a bias, and it's not always wrong, but that I think there's a bias if I connect with someone. I'm like, oh, they've got to be autistic or ADHD. Yeah. And it's almost like, I do think there's probably something that gives me something in the belief that like, if I'm deeply connecting with someone, they've got to be these things, because that's where my people are. Right. And often it's true, but it's not always true.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think probably often is accurate.
Yeah, because there's like a shared rhythm. And then the other thing I have really appreciated about shared neurotype connections is there's just so much understanding around capacity. Like there tends to be so much grace, has been my experience of like, oh, you don't have capacity for that today. Okay. Or like, oh, you're canceling. Of course. Like I'm relieved too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yep. I had to cancel on someone last week who we had scheduled coffee almost a month out because our schedules just would not align. And I canceled because I didn't sleep the night before. And they were just like, okay, see you next time. And I was like, oh my God, such a relief.
Yeah.
I just did not have the capacity. And I think that is a privilege and a place of I feel really a lot of gratitude for the friends that I do have in my life who I can just be like, I just don't have it. I don't have the capacity. I am in burnout, etc.
And that, I mean, I think that goes back to that like social motivation versus social energy of like, to be able to do maintenance of friends, we probably really need our friends to understand the social energy piece. Otherwise, that could lead to a lot of frustration or a lot of like the other person feeling rejected when it's a capacity issue.
Yeah. Like they're putting in all the work into the friendship or relationship. And exactly.
Can I ask, do you feel that way? Like, I'm curious actually, now that we're talking about that, if you ever feel that way with us of like, because you do most 95% of the initiation. Oh my gosh, words. Because you do so much of the initiation, does that ever creep into how you experience our friendship?
I think probably early on. Yeah, for sure. And that was more like most likely the attachment stuff that we've talked about on air. I honestly feel like post rupture and repair with you, I feel closer to you than ever. And when you go silent, which is a lot, I don't default to Megan Anna hates me and I did something wrong. I default to more like checking in on you and be like, hey, are you okay? Because I kind of get the sense when that happens from some friends, Unetta, I'm also speaking to you, that I know something is like not off necessarily, but I'm very intuitive in that way of like being like, I can tell they're really having a hard time. And that's a lot of, what I notice and pick up on with friendships and that with people who especially I feel very close and connected to.
Yeah. And that is definitely true. Like when depression hits, that social withdrawal looks very different. And that is an important distinction. Like when we're talking about social capacity is when depression's also in the mix, most people tend to socially withdraw, and that can be an unhelpful kind of withdrawal versus the kind of withdrawal we might do that's adaptive to protect our energy.
For sure.
And yeah, I've appreciated that when you've reached out, and you're typically not wrong. It's usually I'm like head deep in the sand with too much work, or I'm kind of in a low mood that's pretty withdrawn.
Yep. And I think I go into also thinking, we did our whole burnout series thinking about, okay, depression or burnout, right? Which one is which? I think about my responses when I'm in either space. And I think withdrawing much more in depression, but being more irritated in responses and frustrated in social relationships and burnout. So I can tell the difference sometimes for myself, which place I'm at mentally. Like if I'm in major burnout, I'm so irritated by responding, even to people I care about. I'm just like, one more demand, one more thing to do. I do not have the capacity. And I've gotten so much better though about just saying that, like, I just don't have the capacity. I just don't have it. Because I used to try to respond to everything. And I think that's probably a big reason why I'm in the space that I'm in. But I also realize like with the people who I feel really connected to, I can just say that, and that can just be enough. And that's so helpful for me. It really allows me to have that space of feeling understood and seen and just affirmed in that way. Really helpful.
Yeah. I know it wasn't our intention coming into this episode, but it feels like we're kind of mapping out what are some of the conditions that help autistic people connect. And some of the ones that seem to have come to the surface are things like people who understand my capacity and who like will honor that. And so that it kind of allows for that natural ebb and flow that comes with like our social capacity. And then I think people who can talk openly about things. So partly because there is more to potentially misinterpret when we have social capacity that ebbs and flows. Yeah.
A lot more. I notice a lot more like having to explain things to people like in work right now. If I'm just so irritable or burnt out that it's like I immediately respond to something the wrong way. I have to be like, fuck. I have to backpedal, offer an apology, give context. And I'm like, this takes so much energy and it's so hard. Instead of people who can just be like, this is what it is. This is where I'm at. And this is the reality. Like I was talking to my mom the other day. I'm not going to get too much into this because we got to wrap it up anyway. But she was like, what's wrong with you? As I was telling her, like, I'm just not doing well. She had read that burnout post I made on my Facebook that I shared with you. I was talking to her. She's like, none of this stuff is just bringing you joy. Scotland coming to an end, the book deal getting signed. I'm like, no. And that is a moment of being misattuned, right? Missing that complete, what does the person need in the moment? I think a lot of us have those people in our lives who we have a lot of misattunement with sometimes, of not seeing our needs.
It
Sucks.
It does. There's an essay I wrote a while back, and it's the kind of essay, sometimes I write essays and it's like, here's some education. Other times I write essays and it's like, I'm like emotional while I'm writing them. And this was one of those. And I talk about like rhythmic attunement and how for so much of my life, it just felt like I was slightly out of rhythm with people. And like, yeah, that's a perfect example of there's a disconnect that happened there. And then you feel misattuned in a pretty deep way, right? Like what's wrong with you? And I think that's what's made like this season of my life so beautiful is that I never expected to find rhythmic attunement with other humans. And by no means is it perfect. It's not like we magically don't have ruptures we have to navigate with one another, but that is what neurodivergent community has given me, is a place where it's like, oh, I actually feel kind of rhythmic, like we're on the same rhythm here, versus always feeling like one beat off. But seeing that everyone else is on the same rhythm. And
yeah, that's exactly it. And then feeling that way most of your life.
Yeah.
Up until you discover neurodivergent community.
Yeah. This is what Jim Sinclair, who talked about autistic spaces, he's a autistic advocate. He talked about this experience of like when autistic people create spaces and how when we come together, there's often that experience of like, I feel like I found my people, feel connected, and how when non-autistic people enter, they often describe the same experiences that autistic people describe in our normal life of like, I'm not sure what to say. I feel kind of out, like they feel awkward. Yeah. And it's just, we don't get that experience because we're like 2 to 3% of the population. So rarely do we get the experience where we're setting the rhythm and the tone.
For sure. That's a great point. That's a good callback to that. Yeah.
I think, okay, last season we recorded, I kept being like, why do people listen to us? Because we're so like down and depressed. Well, not always, but like last season we were definitely
often down and depressed.
Yeah, we're often a bit grumpy. I don't know if grumpy is not fair, but it's not the most hopeful podcast to listen to. But I actually think I have a theory that part of what people listen to is our rhythmic connection.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. We go through podcast reviews. So many people point out our relationship and how helpful our relationship and connection has been for them to feel like connected to us in a way, or to just talk about how nice it is to hear it. So did I send you that one from my therapist, Chantel, who works at RMC? Something about us being back on the air with the Burnout series felt like a warm hug. I was like, oh, damn. Okay. But I think you're absolutely right. Like this really would not work if we were missing the mark and misattuned all the time. This would be fucking terrible. Maybe not for this essentially, but for us, it would be dreadful.
I think it'd be terrible for listeners too. Cause like, I think that's the kind of energy like we pick up on, and like it would feel, people would feel that.
Yeah. But I think that's it, it's just, and that's always what made this podcast work, was relational stuff is what makes the podcast work. It's not about like, I always said this, but I've never thought it's been about like research or education or information. I think it's the relational component that makes people feel less alone.
Yeah. I mean, can the education be a little bit of it?
Of course the education's important. I just don't think it's the driving force.
Yeah, no, because there's a lot of other podcasts that do that really well.
Yeah. And I think it's relational. It's just like, it's modeling relationship too. I also think we wouldn't be able to diverge and flow the way that we do. We had no idea what we were going to record about today. We just said connection.
Yeah. It's also, I noticed that we haven't even brought up the idea of bringing guests back on, because we've now recorded 2 seasons without it. And I think we're really leaning into like, because it is a different, we lose some of that, the rhythmic connection.
Yeah. It feels like that weird interaction. When do I speak? When do I not speak? I'm like feeling a visceral, like physiological response right now as we're talking about that. So.
I just had a thought. Okay, this is a half-baked thought, but the definition of if autism is like in my own time and space, the kinds of connections that I crave is when I can be in a time and space with another human. It's really hard to do that with more than one human at a time. I think it's possible. But it's like when we build a little, like I'm holding my hands, like a little, like when we build a little world together, like I'm cupping my hands. And when it's like you create a space where time and space exists. So it's like bringing someone into the autism. That's the kind of connection I crave, is when it's got that same world feel, world building, but doing it with another human. And then the kind of social connection that's a little bit more dysregulating is where it's like I'm trying to sync to their world and back to my world versus like building a world together.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Some of you might be listening and being like, I have no idea, but I think if it makes sense to you, you might be able to be one of the people who can share water with a cactus. I don't know. I think we got some playfulness in this episode, which was great too, after our episode we recorded earlier. So that's it. Today has been a win.
And now we need to start like a BuzzFeed quiz of like, what kind of plant are you?
Oh, that's good for the Substack. That would be like so good. What kind of plant are you? How much watering? What kind of water do you need? That's another question. Is it a sprinkle? Is it more robust? Is
fire
it
hydrant?
I mean, yeah. My Ariel gives the plants all over our house and outside some sort of water. I think it's called, what's that water called that comes in jugs at the supermarket? Is it diluted water? Is it, I don't know.
What is diluted water?
Distilled water.
Oh, okay.
I knew it started with a D. Yes. Yeah. What did you dilute water with? Distilled water. Or maybe it's potable water. I don't know. I learned that word the hard way. So
I'm very high maintenance. I need very high quality water.
Sounds like distilled water. When we actually adopted our Shih Tzu, the owners were like, you have to give him distilled water every day. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So maybe that's why he is the way that he is. I have no idea. Could be. All right. Diverging rapidly. Time to wrap up because brain is unraveling.
Okay.
So,
well, this has been connecting, and okay, now I'm getting very awkward. I was about to be like, I'm glad we had this conversation, but we're not.
If you want to connect with us further on podcast platforms and YouTube, do it on all the channels because that's where we are on Fridays. Also, go check out our sponsor, Jane app with code DCPOD. You get 2 free months upon signing up. Make your life a lot easier for medical and mental health professionals. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.